Healthcare in the United States is about to get much more expensive. The average forecasted increase for healthcare premiums in 2025 is 8%. This is on top of an already 7% increase that we experienced this year on average and a 7% increase last year. This will affect everyone. It'll affect some people more than others, those that are the most vulnerable, those that already cannot afford to pay healthcare currently. Now, why is this happening? How is it going to affect us? And where is this extra money going? Well, we're going to talk about that today. As always, my name is Derek, and I got my degree in finance, so you don't have to. Let me explain to you everything that you need to know about the most likely healthcare premium increases in 2025. Now, right off the bat, this likely 8% increase that we will experience in 2025 is more than inflation, more than double, and it is more than 4 times the Federal Reserve's target rate inflation of 2%, which means that if the Federal Reserve, which they are confident that they will be able to get the inflation rate down to 2%, if that is true in 2025, then the healthcare insurance premium increase will be 4 times that amount. So first and foremost, ask yourself, are these companies just covering increased costs, or are they profit maximizing? Secondly, this number is also double what the forecasted wage increase will be. For 2025, the average forecasted wage increase is around 4%, which means that healthcare premiums are forecasted to increase double the average wage increase, which once again begs the question, are these companies covering extra costs in the form of inflation and higher pay to their employees, or are they simply profit maximizing? And this isn't a recent trend. Over the last decade, healthcare premiums have increased at a greater rate than inflation or wage growth. In fact, over the last decade, health insurance premiums have increased 43%. This far outpaces wage growth or inflation. So, for the third time, are these companies covering higher costs, or are they profit maximizing? And look, yes, there are some added costs that healthcare insurances have had to cover. One of those is drug costs. In the United States, drug costs alone now account for somewhere between 10 and 15% of all healthcare spending. And specialty drugs are even worse than that, pushing 20% increases and beyond. With that said, when you look at the industry as a whole, you'll also see that it's doing very well financially, and profits are on the rise as well. So even with these higher costs, the industry, when it comes to healthcare insurance, is increasing their profits, which by the very definition means that they are outpacing the increased costs. And of course, you and I, the insured, are the ones who are going to bear the brunt of this. And it doesn't matter if you are insured through an employer, or if you are insured through the open market, or if you are insured through Medicare. Across the board, we are going to experience healthcare increases in the United States. And not to mention, that 8% forecasted number, that is the highest increase in healthcare premiums in over a decade. Now, I've talked about this in a recent previous video, but when it comes to these healthcare insurance companies, one of their largest expenses is administrative costs. And C-suite executives, like CEOs, their pay, their compensation, is considered an executive expense. So as they grow and as they increase our premiums this year, you'll be sure, I can almost guarantee it, that you'll be sure to see increases in C-suite level executives' compensation. And if I were a betting man, which I am, I invest my money every single day in the stock market. If I were a betting man, I would bet that those C-suite level executives' pay increases, they're going to outpace the average wage increase, and they're going to outpace inflation. I just have a feeling. Now, is that data-driven? No. That's just simply experience-driven and understanding how capitalism works, which is why, once again, I will say, as someone with a degree in finance, as someone who understands that capitalism is probably currently the best option, I'm not sure that capitalism belongs in our healthcare system. I'm not sure if capitalism belongs in an industry that directly affects whether you and I, whether our loved ones, and whether the American citizens in general. I'm not sure if it belongs in an industry that directly ties to whether those people, whether you and I, live or die. Okay, rant over. Now back to the data. Another reason why healthcare insurance premiums are increasing is because, yes, some costs, like drug costs, are increasing. And one of the main reasons for this is because we have an aging population. 100 years ago, 1 in 20 people were over the age of 65. In 2020, that number was 1 in 6, and it's surely higher now, which of course means as the average age of the American population increases, not only does healthcare costs increase, but there are less working age individuals to pay into the system to cover that aging population. So while, yes, I've been critical of the healthcare industry and I've been critical of their increasing profits and their increasing investor profits and their increasing C-suite level executive profits, I'm also aware that the dynamic of this country when it comes to our healthcare system is changing because we, like many other first world countries, and maybe that's a misnomer, but many other first world countries are experiencing an average age increase. And here's the problem with that. We like to talk about the average life expectancy of a person to kind of gauge how good a country's healthcare is. But there's another measure that's important, and that is the average health span. The average health span instead measures how much of a person's life is spent in good health. And there's this metric known as the health span, lifespan gap, which shows how much of a person's life on average is spent burdened by serious illness. And while we as Americans have increased the average life expectancy, we haven't done as good when it comes to increasing the average health span, which means, yes, people are living longer, but they are not living longer, healthier lives. This becomes a problem because if we as Americans are living longer, but our health span isn't increasing, that means we spent more of our lives burdened by a serious illness, which of course adds costs to the healthcare system. And the numbers aren't great. The average male in the United States spends 12.4 years of their life burdened by a serious illness. And while women have a higher average life expectancy, they actually have a worse health span, lifespan gap. Women, on average, in this country spend 13.7 years of their life burdened by a serious illness. So what this means is we have pushed life expectancy higher for both men and women, but we haven't done much for the health span gap. In fact, it's actually gotten worse. It's increased from 9.6 to 12.4 years for men, and for women, it's increased from 12.2 years to 13.7 years. So what this tells me, looking at the data, is that yes, we are increasing our life expectancy, but we are not pushing forward when people get serious illness. This means that even though we are living longer, we are getting sick at a similar time to when we would before. But because we're living longer, we are burdened by serious illness longer. And this gap underscores one of the main reasons why healthcare costs are increasing, minus the obvious profit maximizing that is going on. One of the major reasons is simply because people are living longer under serious illness, which means these health companies have to increase payouts. So while I don't have a degree in medicine or in studying illnesses, I do have a degree in finance, which means I naturally love statistics. And to me, these numbers signify something that's wrong with our healthcare system. We are spending time and effort or money in extending people's lives, and we've gotten very good at doing that in the United States. Unfortunately, it seems like we are putting band-aids on problems instead of preventing those problems from happening in the first place. And because of that, people are living longer, but they're not living healthier. And it seems like this is going to be a vicious cycle. Because as people live longer, but not healthier, healthcare costs and premiums will increase. This will lower discretionary spending for a lot of people, which means that they might choose cheaper, less healthier options when it comes to food or hobbies or snacks or the other myriad of things that affect our health, which will then feed into the cycle of us living longer but not healthier lives, which will then increase the cost of our healthcare. So, what is the answer to fixing this? Well, one, we absolutely need to fix our lifestyles. The problem is it's so expensive nowadays to live, and groceries are so expensive nowadays to live that people are choosing options that perhaps last longer by having more preservatives or by being more processed, because healthy food, whole foods, don't last as long in the fridge or in the pantry. And on top of that, we have a for-profit healthcare system. So not only are we going to have to deal with these added costs, like every first world country, but we're also going to have to deal with an added cost to us, which is profit maximizing. We are one of the few Western or modernized countries that still use a purely for-profit healthcare system. Yes, there are others, but when you look at the list of countries with the best healthcare in the world and with the most affordable healthcare in the world, they tend to be subsidized or completely ran by the government. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like higher taxes, and I don't trust my government for everything. I like capitalism, and I invest my money in companies. With that said, again, I'm not so sure if I want those companies that I know for a fact are trying to maximize profit to their shareholders to be the people who are in charge of making my healthcare decisions. In fact, I would much rather have, in this instance, perhaps the government or an agency that is voted for, like we're supposed to, vote for our representatives, that is voted for. So perhaps then, when things don't go our way, and when I mean our way, I mean us as Americans, as the conglomerate that is America, not the upper crust or the 1%, when things don't go our way, we won't have to resort to the recent events that just happened. Instead, we could potentially vote people out and vote new people in. Now, is this ever going to happen in this country? You know, it's sad for me to say this, but I doubt that we will ever get away from a for-profit healthcare system in my lifetime. But I think at this point, I'm just making this video longer for no reason. You understand where I stand, and you now understand that your healthcare premiums are probably going to go up 8% in 2025. So with that said, do with this data as you would. I'm not sure if there's anything to do with this data until the system changes, but at least you can brace yourself for the increased cost. If you like world economics, personal finance, and investing broken down simply, and once in a while, a video like this that somewhat relates to finance, then you're in the right place. Please consider subscribing. It helps the channel a ton. And with that said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next video.